several albums, although he's released more albums posthumously than when he lived, and was one of the most incredible artists because of his conscience and his consciousness and his contradictions. You know, he could make a song like that, Keep Your Head Up, then he could make Hit 'Em Up, which is arguably the greatest diss song ever made. I don't know, maybe Lemonade. Because when you don't name who you dissing and everybody know who you dissing, and it ain't just the person you think she dissing, but whoever fits the bill, that's diss. That's a great diss album, you know what I'm saying? But one of the greatest, if not the greatest diss songs, but he could range from police brutality. Just the other day I got lynched by some crooked cops, and to this day, the same cops on the beat getting major pay. But when I get my check, they taking tags out, so we paying the cops to knock the blacks out. And then he could range to existential anxiety and personal angst. Somebody wake me, I'm dreaming. Started as the semen, swimming upstream, planted in the womb while screaming. On the top was my pops, my mama hollering, stop from a single drop. This is what they got? Not to disrespect my people, but my papa was a loser. Only plan he had from mama was the blanker and abuser. And even as a seed, I could see his plan for me, stranded on welfare, another broken family. So you can see the range of his intellect, the depth of his analysis, the breadth of the coverage of subjects that he made. That's why he still remains extremely relevant and popular. This is why Kendrick Lamar basically had a running conversation throughout his album, To Pimp a Butterfly, if y'all are Kendrick, fans. And, right, conversing with Tupac, because Tupac was such an inspirational figure. He said, to end here, he said, look, I may not change the world, but I bet you I'll spark the brain that will. So here was a man who was intently and intentionally about inspiring young people in particular to take their destinies into their own hands and to change the world in which we live.
So we want to transition, but I want to follow up a little bit and ask you, what do you feel is hip-hop's influence on America today?
Well, it's huge, right? I mean, I was there, you were there, you're younger than me, but you were there when hip-hop was born, right? And the old people were like, turn that music down. Oh, hey, what is that? You know? And that was just for, it's a hip-hop, a hippie to the house. You don't stop rocking to the man.
They don't know about that, I'm telling you.
Yeah, they don't know about that. They don't know about that. They don't know. Have you ever been over a friend's house? I mean, the food just wasn't no good. I mean, the meat's kind of sucking. So, it just tastes like wood. My name is Wonder Mike, and I came to say hello. So people were like, what is that? What the heck? You know, that ain't real music. You're borrowing everything. And then it got political pretty quickly. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stage, they just don't care. I can't take the noise, I can't take, right? Tried to move out, guess I got no choice. Roaches in the back room, right? And then it's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under, right? And so it got political pretty quickly because it articulated the viewpoints of a rising class of people who had been marginalized in American society. Think about it now. The above ground expression of hip hop came around the late 70s, early, like 79, right? Sugar Hill Gang. But we know even before then, DJ Kool Herc coming in from Caribbean culture. And what did they do there? They had those big speakers that blasted throughout the yard. Well, he transplanted that to New York City, plugged in to the, outlet in the house and boomed those speakers out into the corridors of the projects in the hood. And so Ronald Reagan is just taking office, right, in 1980. Bill Cosby becomes America's father in 84. Reagan is the nation's grandfather, I suppose, at that point. And he was a fascinating figure. So you've got the repressive techniques of a neoconservative junta that is being expressed through a grandfatherly figure, a former actor, who is now the president of the United States of America. And we were thinking then, oh my God, how unintellectual can a figure be to become president? And we thought he was the apex of that until another guy, George Bush, came along with strategery. And we said, oh my God, how dumb. But the record has been set. In your generation, with the dumbest, most ill-informed, most arrogant, narcissistic, self-involved creature, an adolescent who stands up every morning to excrete the feces of his moral depravity into a nation he has turned into a psychic commode.
Come on now.
Now I realize, just to be fair, I know that there are people here who may have voted for Mr. Trump. I understand, because this is, look, I got criticisms of both left and right, but as James Brown would say, house and ever. The man we got in the office right now was just backstage speaking to my speaker agent, Miss Elizabeth Kane. Give it up for Miss Elizabeth Kane. And give it up for my man Tim, who drove me 2 hours from Raleigh, Durham. Right? Give it up for my man Tim. So we were back there discussing, and I don't care what your politics are, Donald Trump represents the manifestation of the lethal intensity of arrogance combined with ignorance, right? Here's a man who is proud to be unmolested by enlightenment. And that's just the nice stuff I can say about it. So I'm drafting an apology letter to George Bush right now. Dear George, I thought you were the dumbest ass president we have ever had. Boy, was I wrong. You look like you could be the president of Mensa in comparison. And let me say this on a serious note though. Here's a man, now we can disagree politically, right? That's fine. But the problem is that he has been so abortive to the process of American democracy. Left or right, conservative or liberal, Democrat or Republican. Here's a man who has subverted the civility and the comity, C-O-M-I-T-Y, if you don't know it, look it up. The civility and comity of our democracy has shredded every sense of protocol that should attend the office. Now, I know some people say, well, we want a person in there, who doesn't care about what has happened in the past. We want somebody who can celebrate what's going on now and be willing to tell the truth about it. Fine, but you don't have to be a jerk. You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to call women out of their names and to dismiss them. You don't have to foment anti-Semitism and anti-Mexican sentiment and anti-blackness and anti-Muslim identity. You don't have to do that in order to tell your truth, because we live in a culture where we are ostensibly, supposedly committed to the principle e pluribus unum, out of many one. Yep. That means that we are all here together. Build a wall around 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Build a wall so that you will be stuck in the Oval Office and Nancy Pelosi will have to take over. So my point is that I think that Donald Trump has been destructive to the process of American democracy. Even white folk are going, Jiminy Cricket, what's going on? The hell? This is not what we ordered. And so, and I will say this though, for those white brothers and sisters who are ashamed, as you should be, of Donald Trump, or right-wing conservative figures who voted for him thinking he would do a certain thing, and poor working-class white people from Appalachia, from the Delta, he ain't your friend. He's got the government shut down right now And one of his secretaries said, I don't get why people who haven't been paid for 5 weeks need to go to a food pantry. Because they ain't got no damn money like you, billionaire. And so poor white people should join with poor black people and native people and brown and red and yellow people, and together, forging alliances and connections with each other, we can turn this mother upside down. So, back to your question.
Easiest job I ever had, but go ahead.
The reality is that we are living in dangerous and destructive times, and hip-hop reflects brilliantly on those times. Now, has hip-hop also fomented some of the nasty and vicious consequences of uncritical adoration of wealth? Yes. Of capital? Yes. Of consumer culture? Yes. Of misogyny? Yes. Of sexism? Yes. Of toxic masculinity? Yes. Of patriarchy? Yes. Unquestionably. But I teach at Georgetown, the Catholic Church, that does the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? I preach in a black church, so have we.
You better say that.
Come on now. Come on now.
I know I'm on the buckle of the Bible belt. I lived here for 2 years. Chapel Hill, taught from 94 to 97. And let me tell you something. I'm in the black church. I'm in Cleveland preaching the other day. Black woman came up to me after service. She said, you know you're going to hell. I said, damn, did Jesus tell you that already? I said, I guess I ain't got to watch my cholesterol. I guess whatever. She said, you know what I mean. I said, why am I going to hell? I said, I know 25 reasons why I should go. Which one do you know? I'm just curious. She said, oh, funny, huh? She said, you know why? Because you said God created gay people. I said, and you think I'm going to hell? And you a polytheist? You think there's one God for straight people and another God for queer people? Either God created everybody or God ain't created nobody. Right? And she said, oh, you're being smart, huh? She says, you know, they chose to be gay. I didn't choose to be black. I said, I got news for you. Some people have opted out of the plan of blackness. I ain't gonna name no names, Clarence. And, what? Clarence Carter is one of my favorite singers. What do you mean? People are so ridiculous. Ben. I mean, been there, done that. That's all I'm saying. I'm gonna talk about Carson. So, I said, choose to be gay. Do you choose sexuality?
No.
Is that how it works? So if you choose to be gay, it stands by logic and reasoning that you choose to be straight, right? So I asked her, what age do people choose to be straight? What, you went to your mom at 13? Look, I've been looking at the options. And I'm gonna choose to be straight. Because that other option is a pain in the ass. Stop it. Oh, really? They told me this was Pembroke. Don't live here with the Pembroke. Homophobic? Homophobic much? Homophobia? Scared of gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, trans people, queer people? What you scared of? You scared you gonna catch it? That ain't how it works, but if you're around a gay person, you find out you're attracted to them, then go ahead. Right? That ain't how it works. Scared of gay people, scared of queer people? God didn't create them, why not? I'll tell you why it's not a choice. Let me give you an example. The conservative senator from Iowa, who was anti-gay marriage, married with kids, a stalwart, upstanding member of the community, conservative, family values, but he got accused and caught of going into the bathroom stall and tapping the toe of his neighbor. Now, I've done the same thing, but I was just asking for some toilet paper. I did not know. I was trying to holler. I was like, hey, I'm suffering over here, and I need some toilet paper. I didn't know within the rituals of queer identity and homosexuality and gay eroticism that was a sign in a culture where they were not allowed to be free. It amazes me that people who constantly talk about the freedom to choose, don't let the government get in my bed, don't let the government tell me what to do, who are conservative, get mad at gay people. Why are you mad, son? Allow people to live and to live. And for black people who have been viciously subject to racism, how are we going to turn around and be homophobic?
Well,
right? How can Latinx people or Native peoples who have been viciously set upon, or Asian brothers and sisters from the Pacific Rim all through Asia, how can we afford to be antithetical and hostile to the premise of the humanity of queer people in our community? And so my point is, hip-hop has done a lot of crazy stuff, but so has the church, the Catholic Church, the Protestant Church, and across the board. What has hip-hop done? I think it's the evolution of hip-hop has been extraordinary. You know, you start from a beat that everybody can do, well, look here, hip, now it's all complicated. God forgive me for my brash delivery, but I remember vividly what these streets did to me. Jay-Z said, imagine me allowing you to nitpick at me, portray me like a pick-a-knee. Right, Biggie? I used to fuss when the landlord dissed us, no heat. Wonder why
Christmas missed us.
Christmas missed us. Birthdays was the
Worst days.
Now we sip champagne.
Like it Thursday.
Everybody like the life I live, because I went from
Negative to positive.
good, and if you don't know,
Now you know.
So think about that and the extraordinary women, you know, from Queen Latifah to Lauryn Hill, UNITY, to Lauryn Hill, even after all my logic and my theory, I add an MF so you ignorant, hear me. Right? To now down to Nicki Minaj, and R&B, right? Nicki, and then your girl Cardi, Lord. Huh? He's his bloody shoes. If I see you out, I don't speak to you, I don't with you. Huh? And told the president what was up. Huh? Cardi B is a political analyst who should be on CNN. She said, I don't know what y'all talking about. And don't tell me about Obama who shut down for 17 months. He did it for health care. So you women could get things checked. And your grandmama get her blood pressure checked. Cardi B laid it on the line. Hip-hop at its best is the amplification of a voice that has been muffled by white supremacy, social injustice, economic inequality, and bourgeois captivity to appropriate language and culture. Hip-hop at its best tells the truth about the desperate realities that poor people confront and raises their voices so that the world can hear the beauty, the brilliance, and the power of the marginalized. That's what hip-hop at its best is.
I understand why people like you. So, to follow up, this is a week at UNCP where we're celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King and his legacy. You've written 2 books among your 20 about Dr. King, and of course we started off with Tupac, and your array of choices to write about are amazing. But I thought it'd be nice for people to hear how you feel about maybe expressing some things that they may not know about Dr. King. Because there are 1 or 2 things that everybody knows about Dr. King. I Have a Dream. But the evolution of Dr. King from 1963, the March on Washington, till he was assassinated in 68, there were many changes in his ideologies and beliefs.
Right.
And I know you write about those extensively, so share with people who may not know some of those differences in his ideology from 63 to 68.
Yes, sir. No, it's a great point. Look, Dr. King has been frozen, as I was discussing with Professor Williams, who brought her students here, teaches composition. here. Shout out to Professor Williams. We froze Dr. King in 1963, like he had one hit. Like if you were talking about Drake. The Soulja Boy, Drake! You know he took my style, Drake! It's like if Drake, Aubrey Graham, had one hit, like all you focused on was you the best I ever had. See, young people don't even know that song. That's Drake 10 years ago. Y'all weren't even born, huh, man? Y'all were kids when that came out. My God, if Drake is old school, I'm hurt. So y'all didn't even know. That's like Drake only had one song. It didn't have Kiki, Do You Love Me? Or if he didn't have I Got My Eyes on You. Y'all don't know nothing about that. Kayla, been a minute since we kicked it. You're a star, love. Man. Don't get me moving with Drake. Two yellow Negroes, we're very emotional. Drake was born October 23rd, 24th, I was born October 23rd.
Oh boy.
Yellow Negroes born in October, Scorpios.
Scorpio!
What? Number G, holla. So,
Same birthday, baby.
you know, let's go back to your generation. Frank Sinatra had more than one song. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. That was great, but Frank sang more than that, right? I did it my way.
Yeah.
Come on, don't limit the chairman of the board to one song. He had many. Sam Cooke, Darling You.
Oh.
Send me, I know that's you.
Oh.
I gotta get old people some love. Y'all young people can't get it. I know that's you. Send me, honest you do. Honest you do, honest you. At first I thought it was infatuation. You can understand every word they said, right? Nat King Cole had more than one song. Darling, je vous aime beaucoup. Right, he also said, chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Every word you can understand. Now we got, know what I'm saying? No, actually, I do not know what you're saying. Only thing I know is that when you get to that part where you go, right? The part that I can understand, what's that part where Drake be singing with them? On the Migos, right? What's that song they be singing?
Walk it like a
Huh?
Walk it like a
Out of it, but which one? I mean,
Like-
the one where you can understand what he's saying.
Walk it like a
Right? Walk it like it, talk. Oh! Like it, talk. Oh! Like it, talk. Yeah, I understand that. Walk it like you talking. That's about it. I don't understand nothing else. So, it ain't like King had one speech, but we freeze him there because we're comfortable in isolating King to a narrow level of concern for overcoming incivil hostile behavior from the dominant culture to minorities without really challenging white supremacy. So we would rather quote a speech, and we ain't even really listened to the entire speech, right? It's a great speech now, but we only listen to the end part of it. You know how you got one song, you just know one part, you know, then you get to your part, and I will always love you. That's all you know. You don't know the rest of it. You don't know none of the rest of that song, right? And so we repeat the part we know. King going, I have a dream. What did he say? He started off 5 years ago. A great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today. Well, I'm giving you the echoes from the audience too. That's what I'm giving you. No extra charge for any of this. Signed. That's melisma when you stretch one note over several syllables. right? Sign, like Sam Good. Oh, melisma. Just trying to drop some signs on it. Like Einstein. So, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Abraham Lincoln in the background, in whose symbolic shadow we stand today, 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, 1963. So King said, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope for millions of Negroes who were manacled by enslavement. He said, but 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. He was lodging a complaint and registering a grievance against American democracy. He said 100 years later, the Negro finds himself marooned, listen to this, on a tiny island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. Look at how he's breaking it down now. He said, we have come to the nation's capital to cash a check. A check that has been marked insufficient funds. Now I know y'all don't write checks no more. Half this generation don't even know what check is. That's the check mark I got. Is that what you're talking about? They have no idea. Y'all ain't never got a piece of paper with the name up there and wrote your name on it and wrote a check for more than you got. Have you ever done that, sir? Don't confess. In my past, I have done so as well. Because I thought the game was basketball, so the check had to bounce. So King is saying we refuse to believe that the great vaults of democracy are empty, because the great vaults of democracy are what stand behind that check. The reason it bounces is the vault is empty. And King is saying the vault of democracy is not empty. He had a Rihanna moment. Nation better have my money.
Come on now.
I'm working hard up here. Y'all better help me out.
Come on now.
Thank you. Thank you very kindly. So he then goes on to say the whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of this nation until the Negro is granted his or her citizenship rights. Listen to those of the man. And then he says that he celebrates the marvelous new militancy, the Black Lives Matter of their day. For all those who would contradistinct and contrapose Black Lives Matter to us, to Martin Luther King Jr., y'all ain't like Dr. King. He was celebrating the Black Lives Matter of their day. SNCC, Stokely Carmichael, what became later H. Rap Brown, and other revolutionary, radically resistant figures who stepped outside of the appropriate parameters of the civil rights movement to challenge white supremacy and power in America. Even though he had issued a warning that black supremacy is as dangerous as white supremacy. He understood that, right? Later when he would say injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So then he said, he talked about police brutality. So when we think we're facing it, when we think we're facing it today, where pavement padding calls the police, because you're trying to get a drink of water, your kid trying to sell water or lemonade, a child, right? You're defending young white boys from Covington who engage in the polyphonic, stereotypical representation of whiteness as innocent and willfully negligent, but claims to be the victim itself. That ain't a new song, that's an old song. To articulate that premise of America, King was speaking about that 50 some odd years ago. And then when black people have barbecues in an open and they call them the police, what's more un-American than separate black people from their barbecue? Go to Starbucks, police call on you. Sleeping at Yale, and you a student, police call on you. Selling Lucy's on the street, Eric Garner in New York, police kill you. Alton Sterling selling CDs down in Louisiana, dead. Philando Castile in Minnesota, Liberal, Minnesota, Fargo, outside in South Dakota, North Dakota, West. In Minneapolis, in Minnesota, he announces to the policeman what you're supposed to do. Sir, I have a legally registered gun. And 7 seconds later, he is dead. It's not what we do. It's who we are. That is the defense. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke about that. And then he said, the Negroes in the South can't vote, and the Negroes in the North believe they have nothing for which to vote. Mm-hmm. Here we got voter suppression, District 90.
Oh, there it is. Go to it.
We got voter suppression that William Barber has to become a national leader on for leading Moral Mondays. When I was here in 94, 97, Barber used to take me around the state. A humble, unknown, anonymous black preacher committed to doing justice in this state. Nobody's paying him or paying attention to him. Now he's a MacArthur Genius Award winner, speaking at the Democratic National Convention. Keep at your job. Do what God assigned you to do. And one day, anyhow, that's beside my point, but I got to preach.
Yeah. Will he do it? Yes, he will.
Anyway, back to the subject at hand. And so Dr. King said all of that in that speech. And then, as he was reading that speech, and he usually didn't read speeches, he usually does what we're doing today, having an extemporaneous exemplification of his knowledge. Not that he wasn't prepared. You got to be more prepared when you speak extemporaneously, because you have to go upon the images that you have conjured, the notes that you have built, the ideas that you have accumulated, and then link them together in a spontaneous fashion to make it appear like you're doing it effortlessly. Right? But King was reading because he was conscious of history. The cameras were on him. And check this. The other leaders tried to jockey for first place. First of all, they didn't want to speak after King. Understandable. Even though King in school got a C in preaching. Who was wrong, him or the teacher? I'm just saying, sometimes teachers be wrong. Not at Pembroke, but at Georgetown, they'd be wrong. So if I gave you a bad grade and you become a billionaire, forgive me. I'm sorry, Bill Gates, I had no idea. I would have given you an A+. No, because I gave you that C, it made you work harder.
Say it again.
Dropped out. And you became somebody. George Bush was a C student. C students always become president. Not always, but sometimes. Sometimes F+ students become president. Fake news, fake news. Anyway, back to my point. So King is reading his speech. For anybody else, that would have been an A+. But for King, for him, about a C+. So on the side of the stage, an insistent, radiant, black female voice whispers to him where he can hear her. Because you see, even when you fight oppression, you can reproduce oppression. Okay. So on stage, right, and we were talking to Dr. Walton, one of your brilliant professors here earlier, and we talk about multiple forms of oppression. Even when you're fighting white supremacy, you might reproduce male supremacy. Even when you're fighting toxic whiteness, you might reproduce toxic masculinity. So while they were on stage, they didn't let no women up there. Only two got on that day at the March on Washington. Josephine Baker, y'all don't even know who she is.
Ooh, the Black Dog Dance.
We got old people was up in there. Cherchez la femme. Je parle un peu de français maintenant.
Oh, Josephine.
Bonne paysanne de Lorraine. I know French. So, Josephine Baker, the great international artist who influenced to a degree Beyonce. Right? Josephine Baker got up there in her humanitarian, because she adopted kids from all over the world. In her humanitarian role. And then Mahalia Jackson sang, I've been mute and I've been scorned. I've been mute and I've been scorned. Oh, children, I've been mute and I've been scorned. I've been talked about, sure as you on. Right, she up there singing.
Okay.
Right? But that about it. Might like your wrist, that about it. Oh, that's for the J people, don't even worry about it. So, from the side of the stage, she shouts, whispers to him, tell him about the dream, Martin. And so King puts down the paper. Despite the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. Why did she know about the dream? Because he had given that speech before, where?
Detroit.
In Detroit, Michigan. Represent Detroit, what's up? Because most great things start in Detroit before they come to the world.
They get cold in the day.
Where Walton at? Where Dr. Walton at?
They get cold in the day.
Aretha Franklin, don't make me call the names. I say a little prayer for you. Smokey Robinson. I love it when we cruising
together.
Look at y'all. Look at these young people. Look at y'all. The Supremes. Baby love. Right? That's how we did it. We killed y'all with that music. And them cars. And that pollution. But that's all right. Got to get those gas emissions right. So she shouts, whispers to him, tell him about the dream. Because black women, even when they ain't in charge, they in control. And so the point is, he just taking a picture. I saw him get up right there, my brother right here. Get your hands out my pocket! Get your hands out my pocket!
Is he gonna go into?
You're good. You're good.
How do you feel about the
talking
date?
about? My God. I'm the only white guy down here, and he's embarrassing me. That's so wrong. I'm just joking. So, sort of. So King starts speaking about that dream. And most people remember 34 words uttered when he was 34 years old. I have a dream one day my 4 little children will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Many conservative white brothers and sisters and others try to freeze King there by saying that he was interested in colorblind admissions policies or employment practices. That ain't what he said. That was an ideal, not a reality. That's like you at the crib seeing a red Corvette pass by and you in the hood. And you go, that's my car. It ain't really your car. You want it to be your car one day. And should you grow up to have a red Corvette, you can say, back when I was a child, I was sitting in my hood in the Marcy Projects. And I said, one day I'm going to have that car, and now I'm there. That's when it's real. But most of us are like sitting in that hood saying, that's my car, but it ain't your car. King was saying, one day, that's my ideal. It is not yet the reality. And so we freeze King in 1963. But later that year, that speech was delivered August 28, 1963. I stand to be corrected, September 15, 1963. Less than a month later, King said, I saw my dream turn into a nightmare when those 4 girls in that church, 16th Street Baptist Church, Birmingham, blown to their eternal reward by white terrorists. The major terrorists in this country have not been named Muhammad, but Bubba. White terrorists have killed thousands of human beings. Over 4,000 were lynched. And white folk sent postcards of the lynching as picnic items of celebration. I don't say this to point a finger. I say this to talk about history and to talk about that's in our lifetime. That's in the last 50 years. And so King said, I saw my dream turn into a nightmare in Birmingham. He said, I saw my dream turn into a nightmare in Watts, California, where the riots went on, where the urban rebellions occurred, where black people offended by police because the police attacked them. Many riots have been started, many rebellions have been started, like the one in Detroit, where over 43 people were killed until LA's riot in 1992, until its rebellion, the most violent riot and rebellion in American history, 1967, again because of police brutality. And so, my brothers and sisters, Martin Luther King Jr. gave many speeches, like the one he gave the night before he died. Arguably his greatest speech.
It was his greatest speech.
In his bedroom, tired, in bed, trying to rest, had a cold, had just flown into Memphis. It was raining cats and dogs. He didn't think anybody was going to be at the theater that night, so he sent the auditorium. He sent Ralph Abernathy and Jesse Jackson in his stead.
Jesse.
And when they got to the auditorium, they called him back and said, there are 2,000 people here, and they don't want to hear nobody but you. And King got up. Can you imagine? He got up out of his bed to deliver one of the greatest, if not the greatest speeches of his life. Oh, we ask America, be true to what you said on paper. If you wrote it, live it. Then at the end, he said, I've been threatened by some of our sick white brothers. What they will do. And this is what many people forget. King was assaulted because he offended white society. He was not seen as he is now. It's hard for young people to imagine that. King was seen as an enemy. King was seen as dangerous. The FBI said he was the second in charge of the FBI, said that King was the most dangerous Negro leader in America. Martin Luther King. They called him names, Martin Luther Coon, like two newsmen have done mistakenly. They might have, but the collective unconscious has been fueled and fed by the memory of their race, that King was called a coon, like Obama was called a monkey, like his wife was said to be not on the cover of Elle, but in National Geographic, like the Williams sisters, especially Serena, demonized and animalized. And so Martin Luther King Jr., standing on that podium that last night, said, I don't know what will happen to me now, but it really doesn't matter, because I've been to the mountaintop. And I've looked over, and I've seen, look how he stressed it out, the promised land. Like that scene was the arc of rhetoric over which you could walk. Professor Williams can tell you about that in composition. Constructing narratives that become metaphoric bridges from one experience to another, from one sentence to another, one paragraph to another, one page to another. I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory. Then he turned on his heels and fell into the arms of his best friend, Ralph David Abernathy, and his aide, Jesse Louis Jackson. This is the king we forget. The radical king, the revolutionary king, the king who spoke out against the war in Vietnam. The king who said it's a time to break silence. I was speaking with Professor Williams about his call in Vietnam for us to speak out against that war. Civil rights leaders said you're crazy. LBJ, that's not LeBron James. That's Lyndon Baines Johnson, the greatest president black people have ever had. Sorry, wasn't FDR, wasn't Obama. Obama was good, but it wasn't him. Wasn't your bae or boo with the tan suit, not him. Obama was scared.
One scandal.
He didn't do much for Negroes at all, if you're going to tell the truth, but I don't want to say that out loud. Did I say it out loud? Damn, I might as well go on and say what I got to say then.
Go ahead.
Right? Obama was scared. He didn't want to do too much. He didn't want to upset white folk, but they already upset with you. They didn't love you no way. They didn't love them bros. Y'all hear me with the stoop. Come on now. Give me love for the Transfederation. Thank you. LBJ, redneck, so-called cracker president from Texas, did more to help black people legislatively than any president in the history of this nation, including Abraham Lincoln. Right? Because Lincoln said if I could have done it without freeing the slaves, enslaved people, I would have done it. But we ain't mad. It ain't what your intent was, it's what the consequence was, bro. Even though you didn't intend to let us go, we sprayed! Lyndon Baines Johnson presided over what? Civil Rights Act, 1964. Voting Rights Act, 1965. And when King got killed, in homage to him, what did he advise the nation to do? Those senators and congresspeople to pass what? Fair Housing Act.
Yeah.
That's the Holy Trinity. That's a triumvirate. Any word you can find, troika for three, trio, three dog, whatever you got. I got three on it. Transform the legislative landscape and political destiny of black people in America. King was brave enough even to stand against him, saying, I agree with you on civil rights, but I disagree with you on Vietnam. It's a time to break silence. And he was brave. He went against bourgeois Negroes who thought he was crazy, shouldn't do it. He met with gang leaders in Memphis right before he was murdered. He met with the unsavory, the illiterate, the demonized, the poor. He used the N-word. I know people don't want to hear that. Oh my God. Right? Ralph, when Andrew Young got back the night before King was murdered, because they didn't have cell phones back then. Cell phone meant you got a phone brought to you while you were in your jail cell. Come on now, that's pretty good. Cell phone, come on now. BIGPOPPA, no info for the DEA, federal agents mad because I'm flagrant tap myself in the phone in the basement. It ain't the same. And so King didn't have Facebook. He had to face the book and read it. I'm not gonna keep doing this. He was a Twitter with joy.
Bring it.
And so Andrew Young came back to the hotel room, room 306, Lorraine Motel, where he was because Negroes complained that he had gone to the white hotel. And what's wrong? Black hotels too good for you? Because Negroes will get you killed. Loving them, serving them, right? That's why I got a problem with cancel culture. We canceled you. You ain't no credit card company. Canceling me. You ain't no check writer. You ain't canceling me. Right? You ain't no magazine canceling my subscription. Right? We push each other and call each other sellout because you don't do this. So they badgered King into moving into the motel where he was more vulnerable. They didn't mean to kill him, but it ain't your intent, it's the consequence. My pastor used to tell me a mosquito don't mean no harm either, just want some blood, but it can give you malaria and kill you. Your intent does not exhaust your consequence. So, King, when Andrew Young got back, took a pillow, hit him on the head and said, "Little nigga, where you been?" I know some people, my God. Now, that's not good for white people to go around saying, "Hey, Dr. King said it, I better resurrect that term." Don't go out here and get killed now. That is not what I'm saying. Dr. Dyson said, Dr. King did it. They black. If you ain't black, that not be your turn. Don't quote, don't say it, don't look like you saying it, right? And see, what's interesting is white folk invented the term. We did a rhetorical drive-by, snatched it from you, and you can't have it back. Nigga, please. You can't have it. You can't have it. There's a difference between N-I-G-G-E-R, because with the ER, that will land you in the ER, and nigga, N-I-G-G-A, right? Because that means a lot of things. Nigga, among black people, means a lot of things. It can mean happiness, nigga. It can mean surprise, nigga. You can be angry, nigga. You can be overjoyed. Nigga, what? And then it can be disbelief. Nigga, please.
Oh, wow. Open it up.
Yes.
There are courses taught on this. Enroll.
Michael Dyson ain't coming back.
And so, Martin Luther King Jr.
I love it, though.
was
Great.
seen as an enemy of the people. And then, right, when he got killed, the sweet scent of martyrdom swept away the odious offense he gave. At the time of King's death, he was no longer on the Gallup Poll's 10 most admired Americans list. For the first time in 1967, he didn't make the list. He was unpopular, even among black people. Black people like, take that slow-talking Southern cadence preacher off the stage. We want the sexy black power, black nationalist stuff. We don't want that. His own alma mater, the black school, the historically black college, Morehouse, did not put him on the board of trustees until 2.5 years before he died. Why? Because the white chairman of the board, Mr. Merrill, like in Merrill Lynch, said that King was a poor role model. Why? Because he went to jail too often. He wasn't selling crack. He was trying to crack the edifice of Jim Crow and white supremacy in America. But then when he died, he became a hero. Because now he can't challenge us. He can't challenge white people. At the end of his life, he said most Americans are unconscious racists. That ain't something they be saying during King's birthday. 2 months before he died, he had a meeting of black preachers sponsored by the Ford Foundation, and King spoke to them and he said, some of you are more concerned about the wheelbase on your automobile than you are about the poverty of your congregation. And now we got prosperity gospel.
Okay, now.
Come on, Chris.
Obsessed with Negro upward mobility. I ain't mad. Get your crib, your house, get your car payments on, do all that, but don't do it at the expense of your social development and poor people. So, King is more radical than that, but now that he is, as the poem said, safely dead, we can make of him what we will. And so now people freeze him into irrelevance. Make him a toothless tiger. Make him an ineffectual giant. but he was a powerful, poignant, disturbing, revolutionary figure. And King said we must have a revolution of values. We got to change what we believe, change what we think, and change what we see. That's the Martin Luther King Jr. that will continue to mean something to us well into the 21st century.
Geez, I feel like he deserves more applause than that. I don't know. It sounds weird when I clap with the mics, and y'all did that for me. I appreciate it. It's beautiful to hear. So staying with current events a little bit. You taught in Carolina for a while, and you know there's some controversy up there with a Confederate monument, Silent Sam. So is there a place for these types of monuments in America? And how do you feel about that situation?
You know, look, I understand people who grieve over an outcome, right? Like something happened, you didn't want it to happen. It did. And it meant the world to you. So you're hurt at the core of your soul. You're grieved. Your mama and daddy passed it down from their mama and daddy, who got it from their mama and daddy, who inherited it from their mama and daddy. And they told you through all of those generational iterations that it was about your heritage. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's just acknowledge that, right? And as a result of that, you take it personally. You take it as an insult to a way of life. You don't see any manifestation of white supremacy, of white nationalism, or an indifference to the lives of people of color, because to you, the story has been narrated and told that it is about the pride you take in choosing a side, sticking with it, and ascribing to it moral value and ethical urgency. So I get it. So you erect statues to memorialize, to bring to memory those great figures who, for you, evoked that heritage, so that when I preached the other month, last year at Duke University Chapel, they had just removed Robert E. Lee from the antechamber, or from the vestibule, I guess we would call it, from the hall, with those great and significant figures. Because finally, the protest had arisen and amplified a concern about the placement of this figure. Now, pan out if you are looking at it through the lens of a particular camera. Pan out a little bit. And see, that's what you've been told, but look at how others interpret it. That what you call heritage has been juxtaposed to hate, and you see heritage, not hate. It could be a heritage of hate. Right? And look at the historical amnesia that may becloud your interpretation. The late great Gore Vidal said, "We live in the United States of amnesia." Right? I would add that the theme song was provided by Barbra Streisand. You young whippersnappers don't know Barbara. Y'all know Taylor Swift, maybe Katy Perry, okay, Lady Gaga. But you don't know Barbara, one of the greatest voices of the 20th century. memories like the corners of my mind. She sang that brilliant song written by that songwriting team. She said, what's too painful to remember, we simply choose to forget. So now, the heritage that you celebrate, when you pan back and look at the horizon and look at the bigger picture, that heritage you derived meaning from was pitched against black bodies, was pitched against other white people who were making arguments. Your interpretation of history tells you it was an argument over states' rights. States' rights to do what? Own enslaved people. Right? We've learned now not to say slaves, but enslaved people. We don't want to reduce people to what they are. I don't want to act all high and mighty like I knew that. I just learned that 2 years ago. I hate when people come up and, all nice new phrases like, cisgender. Cis is a gender? What are you saying? Your cis is a gender? What? Then we learn, right? Heterosexism. We ain't know that term 20 years. We ain't know. So give people a break. Let them learn. Look, race is a social construct. I ain't said that when I was a kid. What the hell is race as a social construct? Race as a cab driver ain't stopping for my black ass on the corner. Race is a social construct. The hell? So, right? So, your heritage has been rooted in a bigger argument about the nature of the South, the status of American democracy, the morally compelling argument about the humanity of enslaved people, and whether what you consider to be heritage is hurtful to an entire region and an entire people. So now, when we look at these statues, some people say you can't just get rid of history. Usually I'm down with that argument. But here's the problem with monuments. People say, well, you can use them as a teaching tool. Many white people are not taking their kids to see Robert E. Lee to have, this is what's wrong with America. They're going, that's our hero, that's our daddy. Right? Okay, and I get it. If you believe that, that's what you believe. So that ain't no teaching moment. That's an unteaching, that's anti-teaching. Teaching would have to involve a complicated narrative that allowed us to tell competing stories about a historically relevant figure. Monuments freeze history, close out discourse, and erect themselves as celebration. In stone, this will live forever. That's why they pulled down Saddam Hussein. Right? Because that don't represent what we is no more. We didn't like him when he was here, mofo. When they snatched down Hitler in Germany, how dare you make that equivalency? Robert E. Lee represents the attempt of an entire region to enslave and at points kill black people. If they ran away, they were often maimed or murdered. On the way over from African soil, more than 100 million lost in what we have termed the Middle Passage. And so your monument to your heritage and history, though to your mind noble and innocent, is neither. And so it is difficult to realize that the Catholic priest you worship is in truth a predator. It is hard to realize that the heritage you invested in rides on the back tyranny and inequality. To even say that those monuments belong in a museum, maybe, as artifacts of our unwillingness to be tolerant, as concrete manifestation of our inability to acknowledge the humanity of the other. And so, yes, we must talk about it. But one of the most difficult things for white people to do is to grapple with history. Because they feel that it indicts them. That's why they like foreign black people and foreigners versus people who grew up with them. Right? Obama was just different enough. From Hawaii, they didn't know, is that in America? Is that like Puerto Rico? Right? Mama white, daddy from Africa, that's exotic. We like that Negro. He's not angry, he's not Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton. Right? So we like stuff that's just different enough because it doesn't remind us. See, Obama didn't conjure the history of race in America. He was different enough that they got a clean slate. And Obama never pressed them as hard as he pressed black people. He did horrible things to black people. He stood at Morehouse College and he said, ain't nobody gonna give you. He said, nobody's gonna give you what you didn't earn. Excuse me? They're graduating from college, they earned their degree, sir. The only person who didn't get an earned degree that day, the only person who got an unearned degree was you. Because you got an honorary degree. I've got plenty of them. I ain't do nothing to get it. I ain't studied in school. I ain't took no tests. I got an honorary degree that day, like I did the other day at Bethune-Cookman College. I ain't been to Bethune-Cookman school. Obama shit on black people routinely. Black people dressed it up as banana pudding.
With vanilla way.
Oh my God, that's nasty. That's almost like the help. Black people look at white people and go, oh my God, how blind can they be to follow Donald Trump? Excuse me.
Well,
Anything Obama did, it was good. Drop drones on people, that's all right.
Come on.
Right? Refuse to push hard for interests of people who put him in office, especially black people. I mean, bruh. So he was great in many ways. One of the top 10 presidents we ever had. But when it comes to black people, not so much. Right? Not so much. And we can't even see that. We can't even tell that truth. Same thing with many white people who can't even see it. It's right before their eyes, like Edgar Allan Poe's Purloined Letter, hidden in plain sight. And so I say that the president, the former president, Madam President of the University of North Carolina, brave woman, don't just pull the statue down, pull that shit out the ground. Excuse me for the cursing, it's the unholy ghost. And so, oh please, nobody cusses like a Baptist preacher. Trust me when I tell you this. So, I think it is important to have that conversation. I think it's important for white people to see that the world has been built according to their specifications. And see, many white people get this twisted. They think white privilege means everybody gonna be rich. I have people going to be, Professor Dyson, I don't get it. You know, you're doing really well, your kids seem to be doing well, you're making that money at Georgetown, I'm not doing as you. How do I have white privilege? Good question. They don't mean no harm. I say, you know, white privilege ain't just about money. Although a lot of white privilege has been passed on that way. Most people get rich not because they work hard, because they inherited their wealth. And most rich people happen to be white. Therefore, white privilege has dictated the terms of the transmission of wealth. But beyond that, if you walk down the street and meet a police person and live to tell about it, that's the greatest white privilege of all. Right? When the police see you with a bad turn signal, don't kill you like they did Walter Scott. 7 bullets in his back. Philando Castile, whom I've already mentioned, when you tell them you have a gun, they don't shoot you. They don't beat you, they don't berate you, they don't harass you, they don't intimidate you, they don't understand your ground laws against you, like Laquan McDonald, they don't shoot you 16 times, and you get barely 2 years in jail. Wow. And it's rare that a police person goes to jail for killing a black person or killing a citizen. White privilege, think about it, Jim Crow. Jim Crow meant official segregation. It was a government project. White water fountain, black water fountain. This is why I said Donald Trump grows out of white culture. He ain't no exception to, he's an extension of. See, if you think he's adolescent, what's more adolescent than this? Nah. I got a white water fountain, you got a black one. The damn same water. It ain't wetter. Now, if we had Aquafina and y'all had Aquapana, that would have been a problem. That's adolescent. Freezing adolescent dispositions as racial practices is what white supremacy and white privilege right on. So during Jim Crow, it didn't mean that all white people would be rich. It meant the people who had the best chance to be rich were white. You get the difference? During Jim Crow, most white people didn't go to Harvard because they couldn't get in. So Jim Crow didn't mean every white person could go to Harvard. It meant the only persons going to Harvard were white. Do you see the difference? You have an eligibility to compete for something that I'm ruled out from the get-go. I can't even compete. Paul Robeson couldn't go to Princeton. No more auction block for me. No more. Spoke 8 languages. German, Russian, ghettoese, he was gold. I'm a gizzo to the stizzo, rizak, nizal, brizak, hizala, bizak, dizelo, nizach. Couldn't go to Princeton. Had to go to Rutgers. All-American, football player, professional, lawyer, linguist, actor, singer. No matter what, you can't compete. That's white privilege when you rule it out. But what about now? Well, if you done built up so much equity, and you all of a sudden, like you done, like say for instance, you had 400 years of a bank account. All that money you done accumulated. And then all of a sudden, 400 years later, you go, okay, we're all equal now. We can all have bank accounts. I got $1. You got 400 trillion. Mofo, that ain't equal. Even if the practice that allows you to accumulate it doesn't persist, the consequences do. It's so hard for white brothers and sisters to understand white privilege because it's a privilege not to understand it, not to see it, right? And so, for me, those statues and the argument over the Confederacy is an argument over the bitter stakes of history, the amnesia that we want to persist in, and the kingdom of memory that we must claim in order to challenge it. And there are so many white people who are willing to do so now. We have to encourage them as allies. People ain't gonna be perfect, so don't be waiting for somebody to mess up to go, aha, gotcha. Let's try to work together. Because I don't want women to do that. I'm trying to be an ally as an anti-sexist male, but I got sexism all in me. I'm 60 years old. What you think? I'm trying to be good. I'm trying to clear out all the toxic masculinity, but there's all kind of crap up in me. All kind of patriarchal curlicues. All kind of cubicles of sexism. All kind of misogyny that I dare not even give voice to, but it's there. So if I mess up, please forgive me and allow me to get back up and try again. And so we have to build allyship based upon the notion that we got to do the right thing. We got to challenge inequality. We got to challenge injustice. We have to work with each other as human beings. So yes, those monuments are monuments to our inability to acknowledge the humanity of the other. And we should challenge the dominant society to ask why there's such a deep and profound investment. And let me end by saying that. Plus, Drake, I thought y'all was against, not were against, I thought y'all was against participation trophies. You lost the damn war. You ain't the winner. When Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl, Jared Goff ain't gonna get no participation trophy. Now, Jared, you were there. He ain't getting nothing, right? Tom Brady, old man, I'm sorry. I don't like Tom Brady's politics as much as I know them. The team represents this Trumpian stuff, but a 41-year-old man competing against 20 years old, you my hero. Represent, bro. So we got to challenge that. We got to think about it. We've got to continually ask white brothers and sisters to think about that, and we've got to continually forge alliances with them in order to enable them to do the right thing in the cultures we create together.
The right thing like Spike Lee.
So I have 22 questions. I've asked 4. It's been the easiest night of my life, but I do have one, and it's sort of a current thing. You spoke at, I have one more, and then we're going to take a couple of questions from the audience through our social media, but this is not even on my list, but I know you were at Ball State the night before last, and we talked a little bit about how there was some people that spoke up against you coming. They didn't want you there. There were people who didn't want you here.
Mike!
Yeah. So, what does that say about our society that now, like when we did this years ago, I never got one complaint about anybody we ever brought in, because it seemed like this is a college where you can challenge theory and you should be thinking about things that maybe aren't always what you agree with.
Right.
But now we're in a place where if you don't agree with it, you don't want to hear it and you don't want anybody else to hear it. Yeah. So, what do you feel about that? Because you just dealt with that the night before last. Like I said, we had people that said, but I see this beautiful crowd here, so somebody wanted to hear what you had to say. But some people didn't want to. What does that say about where we are today?
You know, and thank y'all for showing up. At Ball State the other day, professor, conservative brother, said I was not a representative, of King, the tradition, that I was a divisive figure, polarizing, and the like. And he said I could never live up to King's stature. Well, he's right about that. Ain't nobody I done met can do that. 39 years old, when you die, in my mind, the greatest American who ever lived is a private citizen. He didn't have the imprimatur of the state, the imbroglio of office. He didn't have the stamp of approval of the government, and yet he changed the world. So, but when I polled the audience, it was a very full audience like it is tonight. I said, I don't want the people of color, I just want all white people. Did y'all like me coming? They said, yeah. It was very self-serving, but what am I gonna do? I was like, no, stop, please, stop. Because it hurts to do this. People say, somebody asked me, does it ever hurt? Hell yeah. I'm a human being. I get letters every day from white people, motherfucking nigga, go back to where you came from, bitch. I just thought I'd share that with you. Nigger, if I ever catch you alone by yourself, I'm gonna slit your, just nasty stuff. You fucking nigger, I hate you. You think you're smart, don't you? Maybe you do, I don't know. I have to correct some of their spelling and send it back. I tell them, you are talking about a river, Niger. I'm nigger. Spell it right. And now I'm to the point where I just go, I can't even tell, just call me Professor Nigger. Can you do that? Dr. Nigger. Dear Dr. Nigger. Go back to where I came from. I'm from Detroit. Don't make me go back there right now. I love the D, but damn.
They get cold in the day.
It hurts every day, because I'm usually in audiences that ain't my friend. I'm always in hostile territory. On election day, I was in Texas. This past election day. After I gave my speech, because they asked me to talk about race, I do be knowing how to do that. The first question white woman who was a professor at the school. That's why I appreciated meeting the many wonderful professors I met here. I keep talking about Professor Williams because I remember her name and I met her, and she's wonderful. But there are many others. Her teacher who taught her, I didn't get her name, and she's here. Dr. Brown, and the other black woman that I signed her book. I mean, tremendous people, right? First question. White woman stands up. I'm a faculty member here. I agree with all your views on Donald Trump, but I'm angry at you. And she said again, she was shaking. I am so angry at you. Oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? I'm funny. You see, I tell jokes. I'm a funny Negro. I'm giving you the truth of castor oil with some sugar. Of humor, I don't be just throwing it down your throat. I'm telling jokes. I'm being self-critical. I'm self-denigrating. I criticize Negroes too. What you wow? So she said, I'm angry at you because there were 3 young conservative white men who got up and left during your speech. And you should have been better at overcoming the divorce and divide in our society to make them feel comfortable and not send them away. I said, all right, wow. I said, now, like I said, was I funny? Yes. I said, did I criticize black homophobia in the black church? She said, yes. Did I criticize Obama? Yes. Did I talk about more he could have done? Yes. Did I also talk about white supremacy? Yes. Did they leave because of all the criticism I made of my own people or them? So the balance and the lack thereof ain't mine. I said, I don't pretend that it's equal because what Obama did and what black people do with their practices in church do not equal white supremacy, but I was equally attuned to the discrepancies in justice that both communities, among many others, right, Latinx, Asian, and Native cultures that are rarely mentioned, embody. I said, so is it your job as a teacher to tell them not to leave because you got to hear what you don't want to hear, and just because you don't want to hear don't mean it ain't right? When people tell you stuff about yourself you don't like, it could be right. You just don't want to hear it. Right? When you go home tonight, your wife tell you, babe, that's not right now. You got to do better. Yes, dear. Thanks. Right? You don't want to hear it. But just because somebody tells you the truth doesn't mean that they are therefore problematic. As I said, I find it interesting that you use this space to claim that you are in league with me, and yet you use your voice to damn me as the first question to set the tone for what I'm doing. And you, my friend, I said, look at the white privilege you embody and the unconscious anger you have against me, because the real religion in America is whiteness. It transcends left or right or ideology. And so I invited her to think about that and to challenge her own students. I said, if I come to class, I'm like Jesus. I love you just the way you are, but I love you too much to leave you that way. Right? No, I'm not comparing myself to the Lord. Dyson said he's like Jesus. I mean, like Jesus does. I ain't like Jesus. Because I be using my miracles for a lot of other stuff. Let me win that $1 billion lottery right there. Of course, the miracles happen and they're all Dyson numbers. So, my point is that it hurts awful much that constantly trying to challenge inequality, social injustice, and particularly white supremacy, when white folk get so mad they want to threaten you, they want to hurt you, they're angry at you, and don't realize, right, that the words they say to you are threatening. I gotta have bodyguards in class, I gotta have them accompany me, because I'm trying to live and tell the truth. Now y'all see me here, I'm a nice guy. But I don't kiss no ass. Can't do that. Unless invited under certain circumstances. Shut up. So, my point is that it's extremely difficult to engage in this kind of back and forth and the hurtful commentary, but what I'm trying to do is as best I can to edify and strengthen. So I think ultimately what we're all trying to do as teachers and as learners is to create environments where opportunities for engagement and growth, are there and are clear. And our possibilities to enhance the humanity of the other is right there. So those are the kind of things that, did I answer your question?
You most certainly did, sir. So we want to take a